Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Business Roundtable podcast. I am your host and facilitator, David Carr of Steward Your Business, where I help business owners and their teams lead well, bring their team together to accomplish great things. And I'm excited to have a special guest on today, Matt, who I've worked with for years. And we have a great topic that we're going to talk about. And just with all the challenges in the business world and the things that we're facing to lead ourselves well, Matt has a specific background and experience as a business owner himself, and then leading other men. So Matt, I want to welcome you to coming on to the podcast, the Business Roundtable podcast, and looking forward to hearing your insights today. But can you just share a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur, business owner, and the work that you do?
Yes. David, thanks so much for having me here today, brother. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. We've known each other for several years now, both through the work inside the Born to Purpose community and also the work through Warrior. So it's good to be here with you. I've been enjoying following your journey and seeing you continue to grow, and also love everything that you're up to with Warrior. So my name's Matthew Sinkovitz, the founder of the Born to Purpose community, which is a men's um, personal and spiritual development community, and primarily the problem that we work with is helping men solve the problem of pornography addiction in their life. I opened the community in about 2019, started um, enrolling students into a couple different levels of support. I was inspired to do the work. It's as a result of my own journey with pornography, which has been a lifelong journey and continues to be a part of my journey today, my work today. And so several years ago, began supporting other men in this work. I have a background in interfaith chaplaincy work, mindfulness counseling, heavy background in personal and spiritual development, and that's pretty much the work that I'm up to in the world. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, we're excited. We're excited to. The reason I brought Matt on is pornography is just one of many different ways that we can say to sedate in today's world. There's so many different ways, from gambling to drugs to drinking to spending to just literally being on our phones and social media. So we're not here to throw shame or guilt on anybody here. Everybody has challenges. Most men, I found, have the challenge along their journey at some point with pornography or some kind of outlet. Again, could be drinking, there's all different ways. It doesn't really, but what what brought on Matt today is because there's a way that we think, mindfulness, a way how we approach problems and challenges in our life. And so I thought it would be great to ask Matt some questions and allow him to share some insights in what he has done in his own personal journey, and how that you may be able to apply that in your own life. Because Matt, to be going from, like you said, from dealing with this addiction or form of sedation into creating a successful business, a community, and leading other men, honestly, is you started with leading yourself and then leading other men. That has been a powerful one. And one of the things that attracted me to you and working with you and seeing what you were doing with the program, and like what I'm doing with other groups, and like finding these resources, Matt, is just so impactful. But can you share, Matt, a little bit about your own journey? You've shared a little bit, like this journey of like how you were able to start to be mindful, start to turn, instead of like just going to the short-term fixes and realizing, but in your mind, starting that process.
Yes. So I would say around age 30 or so. I'm 41 as of the date of this recording. Or probably around age 30 or so, I really began to more strongly feel the call to doing the work of personal and spiritual development work in my life. And I would say I began my personal and spiritual development journey as it relates to investing in with coaches and mentors, et cetera, investing in myself and personally, spiritually, business, et cetera, when I was about 25. And I really began to experience the call in my own life to like do the work. I was like, I was
Mm.
enjoying the business as I was in. I have a background in real estate and music, and I was enjoying that. But I was like, man, I love this, but I really love the coaching. That's what I
Mhm.
really stuck out to me. And so I began to feel this call in my life to live my life in greater service to others and use my gifts in service to others. And as I moved into that and I began to wake up to that and I began to explore more and more, what does that really look like for me? I began to notice areas of my life which were out of integrity for me.
Mhm.
And for me, no one had to tell me that porn was unhealthy for me. And I like the way you prefaced this because, my work in the world is not to throw shade on porn, um, or shame anyone or guilt anyone. I think we get to wake up to whether or not there's a healthy role for it
Mhm.
in our lives on our own. And for me, that's what I woke up to. I woke up to the realization that it was toxic for me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it early on. But I guess there was just something within me that knew it wasn't good. It wasn't healthy for me. It had a toxic quality to it. And so as I grew through my 20s and 30s, there are multiple, I would say, periods when I attempted to quit or say I was done with porn, but I continued to return to it. I continued to find myself there and continue to experience the shame that I experienced with it.
Mhm.
Um, and so as that coincided with me desiring to move into, working with others, I wasn't clear that it was going to be on porn and sex at the time, but I knew I wanted to serve others. And so I began to, like, kind of, as these two things came together, I began to recognize that I want to help others, but I've got this skeleton in my own closet,
Mhm.
or I don't feel integrity to help others, or for me, it created a big drag in my life, a big drag and a big weight in my life. It was a big energetic leak, and I couldn't get momentum. I didn't feel worthy, and I felt like, who am I to serve others when I've got this demon in my closet. So that's
Mhm.
when I really began to wake up to it, and I think I began to come to a place that I recognized it was bogging me down, and
Mhm.
that's when I began to really take action on it, like in my mid 30s. And that's when I began investing in working with coaches and mentors and made a significant investment to work with the coach and begin really going deep and creating resolution on it in my own life. So that's how I began to wake up to the problem for me,
That's
for sure.
great. I like how you talk about awakening because I think sometimes we don't even realize the things that we're doing. Um, like you said, maybe you're overeating, maybe that's the extra drink. What's the matter if I look at this thing or whatever? It's like, but like you said, you were like, that's not serving me. So there has to be an awakening there. Number one, are you even a baseline of where you're at? And this is part of where you and I came through the Wake Up Warrior program. That's why I became a certified trainer with Warriors. Like, let's stop, let's assess, let's look at the fruit of our lives, and is the fruit that we're experiencing, is that really what we want or not? And what I hear you saying, it was, you're like, not really, this isn't what I want. I want something better, I want something different, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I knew I was called to more. I knew I
Hmm.
wanted to experience greater degrees of freedom. I knew I wanted to work in alignment with my gifts. I think that's one of the greatest joys that we get to experience in this human experience, is to, like, do the thing that's in our heart, use our gifts and talents in service to others, and, like, what if we could learn to do that full time? And I began to recognize there was a big hindrance there as it relates to
Yeah.
porn.
So if you're, if you're whether you're a business owner or a leader, what I hear you saying, Matt, is, you realize that you're not showing up the best version of yourself. You have to be real with yourself, so that if because you can't lead others well. But I heard you say, Matt, you're like, I feel like there's a greater capacity. I know I can serve more people, but because I had, number one, I had to have this awakening, and number two, then once I had the awakening, I had to then decide, what am I going to do with this, right?
Absolutely.
So you're being mindful in your choices, and this is kind of where I was getting at. And when we talked earlier before we came on the podcast here, was like, there's a lot of, we can make these short-term decisions or actions that don't serve our long-term vision or purpose of what we can be. And so
Mm.
I feel like a lot of times people are stressed or dealing with a lot of issues that are coming on them. And with work demands, you're managing a team, you've got got this home life. And so what, for the listeners are here that are literally in the midst of that right now, Matt, maybe they're not completely awake, but what are the things that they could be, looking for in themselves? What could they, be paying attention to? Is it the feelings? Is it it's the actions? Like, is it that fruit? What was it that we could help lead them and get them into awakening, so that they
Mhm.
can see and really evaluate, is that serving me?
Yeah. That's a great question, and I think that's really something we all get to come to on our own time, just like we can plant a seed in the ground, but we cannot rush the maturation
Mm,
process, right? And we cannot rush cac the caterpillar emerging from the
mhm,
cocoon as a butterfly, right?
yep,
And, like, maybe when you're a little kid, did you ever, like, rip flowers open, and see the buds inside? Like, I used to do that, but that's not nature's way.
right.
So we cannot rush the process.
Mhm,
There are certain things which can serve as a catalyst to help us wake up, I think maybe quicker.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, so for me, I have three really simple things that I like to offer to help one begin to investigate for themselves. And I think this could be applied to any area of life because we're talking about porn specifically, but we're talking about sedation
yep,
overall, you
yep,
know? So for me, uh, and what I love to offer as you're beginning to explore this for yourself, one, look at the feelings, the emotions in and around the use of pornography, right?
mhm,
Like notice like within hours or days after porn use, do you notice feelings of shame, of regret, of remorse, of low energy? Do you feel these feelings of drag, right? Do you
mhm,
feel like a better, brighter, healthier version of yourself or in and around pornography use? Or would you say maybe the energy is going the other direction? So I think
mhm,
if we just take and so all these things require, I think, a radical honesty, a willingness to really look at these things and be honest with ourselves. But so the first thing is like notice the emotional effects, the energetic effects, the spiritual effects. Do you feel more a greater desire to connect with God? Do you feel a greater desire to connect with others? Do you feel a greater desire to connect with your partner, or do you kind of want to withdraw and get small?
mhm,
Contract, or do you feel like more expansive and open? So that's one way to do it. Um, Number two is this is very obvious, but again, sometimes we can miss the obvious. Um, how about have you told yourself, like I shared, have you told yourself that you were gonna quit, or you've tried to quit, or you've attempted to quit, but you've been unsuccessful? You return to it over and over again. Maybe you
uh-huh,
find yourself using porn again, and you kind of forgot that at one point, oh yeah, I told myself this wasn't good for me, it wasn't healthy for me, but I allowed myself to talk myself back into it and begin to justify it again. So if you
mhm,
told yourself you were going to quit or made this promise, but you continue to return to the behavior,
mhm,
right? Really important, right? So there it kind of demonstrates a degree of what they might call in the recovery community a powerlessness. Like there's this aspect of it, there is this addictive quality to it. Even though I told myself I don't want to do it, I recognize it's unhealthy, I continue to return.
mhm,
And then number three, and I think this is a big one, which would probably hit home for the audience here, is it something that I have to hide in my
mm,
life or keep
mm,
secret in my life, right?
mhm,
Is the
mhm,
energy around it an energy of hiding, of secrecy? I always say, how comfortable would you be right now handing over your phone browser history or your computer browser history to your wife, to your children, to your pastor,
mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm,
Or is it something that you've got to keep small, you've got to keep hidden away, it's kind of tucked away in this dark corner of your life? When someone walks in the room, you got to put your phone away, right, real quick. Or
mhm,
if your wife or your partner or your kids want to use your phone, there's that immediate fear, like, oh no, did I leave a browser tab open or something like that? Are they going to see my history, right?
mhm, mhm.
Is it something in our life that we have to keep hidden in secret? Anytime we have to stay small around something in our life, I think that's the energy of constriction, of contraction. And I think it creates a kink in the hose, if you will.
Yeah, no, I think those are great observations, and I think we're talking about porn specifically, but you could talk about any aspect of your life. Like, do you minimize how many drinks you had over the weekend? Well, you had five, and you really somebody asked you, "Oh, I just drank one." Okay, well, there's something there, right? Or how you are you spending time just spending money on things? Or I mean, today social media just in of itself is a way of sedation where you're just scrolling on, what they call doom scrolling, right? So and you're like, oh, I'm not really on very much. But then you realize if you looked, like, how much time did you actually spend? So, and I think a lot of this, and we talk about in the business context too, and here in the Business Roundtable, is like, we want you to be a strong, influential, powerful leader. But if you feel like you have to hide something or you're not your true, authentic self, right, Matt? Um, you're not going to be maybe making the best long-term decisions there. And so we want to get people and I coach people on this too, of kind of the urgent, important, all these things that are going on. And so we want you to focus on this greater version of yourself. So I really appreciate you breaking that down, Matthew. So number one, helping people become aware. And once they're aware and they realize, okay, I don't want to be this, I want to move in this direction, then they can be start to move in that next version of the self, the desired version. And one of the things that I really liked that you created in the Porn to Purpose community that I saw, Matt, was this noble code, or this way of like saying, who do I want to become? Who is this person or movement? And so, can you speak to kind of what that was something you created specifically for the community? But I know that there's value in whatever that is for whatever you're at, wherever you work, is creating something like that, Matt, of like, this is where I aspire to be. This is who I want to become.
Yeah, David. So we do have the Noble Code, which is like, I would say, like the foundational philosophy or principles that we operate from within the community. And to me, the Noble Code is a call to personal power and to personal responsibility. That's the essence of what it is. And a call to devotion to our path of recovery. But what I would say to kind of go to your point, like getting clear on where we want to go, one of the pieces that we offer inside the Porn to Purpose community is what we call the Freedom Framework. And I developed the Freedom Framework as like the 10 things that must be in place, from my perspective, in order to keep us in a healthy place as it relates to porn. And I think as it relates to like all of life, or anything we want to maybe abstain from or heal from. So what is the framework? What are the pieces that need to be in place simultaneously to keep me in a healthy place? And the first principle inside the Freedom Framework is, it's so basic, but it's getting clear on your why. And we break the why down into two pieces. We break the why down into the first piece of, first of all, what am I moving away from? What am I no longer willing to tolerate in my life? What is toxic? What is unhealthy? You might call it the pit. What am I moving away from? And the why part two would be the paradise or the promise. What do I want to experience instead? Where do I want to go instead? Right? So getting super clear on what I'm no longer willing to tolerate, and getting clear instead on where I want to go. Because if I'm going to say no to porn, or I'm going to say no to X behavior, whether it is alcohol, screens, gambling, whatever, you name it, I got to be clear on what that why is, because that why really serves as the fuel for the journey. And they say, and I really resonate with this idea, that whenever the why is big enough and powerful and strong enough, then the how becomes much easier. So we got to get clear on that first.
Yeah, no, that's super important, Matt. I think is I love that why, and why I started my own even company. It keeps me in perspective. It's bringing people together to accomplish great things. It drives me. It's my filter for everything else. And so I agree with you. It's, if you just try to eradicate a sedating behavior, whatever that is, and you don't have anything else to replace it, some other one will come in, right, Matt? I mean, so let's say we remove porn. Okay, I don't do that, but now I'm just going to shift to food, or there's something else, right? There's the addictive behaviors there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about sedation. For me, it's all just an attempt to emotionally sedate. I think that's what's going on. And for me, I notice if I'm not wanting to reach for porn, then the food will do as a good second, I'm just looking to stuff and shut down, man. Yep.
Right. And we're all stressed. And so we're trying to make sure, and this gets to my kind of the premise of the podcast here, is that, so when we make these, like you said, maybe short-term decisions, like, to get that quick dopamine hit, to get trying to get a relief, but then it's like, that's not really serving me, because we've lost sight of the why. Where are you trying to go there? So for me, for example, I'm working on losing some more weight and everything, so I got to be mindful of the food that I'm getting. Like, yeah, I'm hungry or whatever, but I'm like, I don't want to just grab any old thing. I want to make good nutrients and be very intentional, and that takes some planning and preparation. And so putting yourself in an environment for success. And so, speak to what can you do, Matt, once you know your why, what are some things that we can do intentionally to help set us up for success? So, I mean, we've talked about some of that in the past, and I'd love to get your feedback there.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned environment. Environment is critical. And I think it speaks a lot to what you're doing here inside your community, David, and the warrior, the greater warrior community.
Mhm.
um, we say inside the addiction community that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. We often think that's the answer. What is the opposite of addiction? Sobriety. No, but the actual, what we find to be even maybe a deeper truth or something more helpful or useful is that the opposite of addiction is not just sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Mm.
And specifically as it relates to porn or any addictive behavior, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of hiding, there's a lot of isolation, and it's
Mhm.
very interesting because oftentimes we go to the addictive behavior because of the shame, of the hiding, of the isolation, because we're looking for connection, which turns out to be artificial connection. But then we go to the behavior, and it only serves to keep us in that loop of shame, of isolation, of isolation. So,
Mhm.
um, because of that, I think one of the best and first things we can do is get connected to community around the conversation. When we connect with community, we begin to find the connection that we're looking for,
Mhm.
and we begin to bring all these aspects of ourselves which have been hiding in the darkness, these aspects which are cloaked in shame and secrecy. We get to bring them to the light, and when we
Mhm.
bring them to the light, they begin to heal. And my mentor uh, beautifully says that shame dies when stories are told in safe places. Shame
Mm.
dies when stories are told in safe places. So we get into community, we connect with others, we begin to bring these dark aspects, these shameful aspects of ourselves into the light. The shame begins to heal. We begin to find resources and support, and we begin to see that, hey, I'm not the only weirdo, right? We feel like we're a weirdo because this is that aspect of us that's hidden and we don't really relate and talk much about. But the truth is, a lot of guys struggle with this, and you're not as weird as you think. And getting
Mhm.
into community, one begins to show us proof that others are on the path, that others are doing it too, that we're not alone and we're not so weird. And we can begin to just be real. And I think it gives us the space to open up and begin doing the work.
I love that, Matt, and one of the reasons why I originally reached out to you because I knew men, and even myself that has had that challenge of, the sedation or pornography, and it's like, how do where? Because I've met so many men. I lead a men's ministry through our church as well, and I lead Trail Life with my son. There's other groups and individuals like where do we send them? And I think sometimes we don't know, and so it's really important those that are listening here today. That you reach out to somebody like Matt or myself or get plugged into some community because I agree with you, Matt. That is so important. And sometimes it's hard. You would think, I would like to think that the 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 workplace or the church that even sometimes would be that it's not, unfortunately, not always a safe place, like you said, Matt. So you want to find that safe place where you can open and be really real and raw and relevant about what you're facing, right? And get out from underneath that. So if you're feeling isolated, like you say, Matt, I think that's super important. And what's so strange to me in this world of phones and technology, where we're quote unquote connected, there's not real connection, and we're so desperately seeking that in that human experience. And so I really appreciate your thought. That I like that, Matt. Of like the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, man. I think if so we're talking about mindfulness and awareness. If we're willing to slow down and look, I think when we go to food, when we go to the screens, when we go to porn, that's what I noticed I'm looking for. I'm looking to connect, man. And it provides an artificial connection. But the
Mhm.
trick and the trap is it's just like eating junk food. It tastes good on the lips for the moment, but it leaves us feeling empty and only craving more. And it makes us fat and lazy.
Mhm.
And so it provides what seems like connection, but it's false.
Right. And here's the thing I found in our business world, particularly we're here on the Business Roundtable podcast, is where you're a leader, your team wants to connect with you. They want to hear from you. They want to develop a relationship. And oftentimes we're off making these, doing sometimes we're busy. Sometimes just the fact of being busy kind of hits us. It's almost a way of sedation, I would say, of like, oh, I'm doing lots of things, but am I doing the most important things? And sometimes the most important things is picking up the phone call or having that conversation. And you may be avoiding that, but that's really where if you move toward that point of connection, Matt, and I've seen you demonstrate this with other men, if like as you move toward that, they're like, it will be better if you do that, but if you move away and you try to fill it artificially, like you said, it's just not gonna, it's gonna leave you wanting, and it's going to make you make poor decisions and really short-sighted decisions, right?
I've heard it said, and I love this, that you can't get enough of that which won't satisfy you.
Mm. Yeah.
You can't get enough of that which doesn't satisfy you, man. No.
So yeah, as we kind of come to a point here, Matt, I want to give some folks, some direction here. We've talked about, awakening, and we've talked about environment, and we've talked about community. I think those are great tools and resources. And I think for those of you, again, that are coming and tuning in, if you say, well, I don't deal with pornography, that's fine, but there's other issues in your life, I'm sure, that we all face. And so I want you to be real there and looking at that, being awake. And as Matt was saying, look at the environment that you find yourself in. What is contributing to that? And once you can become aware, I want to encourage you to lean in community, and maybe talk about this, Matt, as we're kind of wrapping up. Like, what has been, as you not only came awake, you moved into this. Now you actually created a community, you created a space. So what would it mean now that you've been in this, and to ongoing success and development? And Matt, what would you say as we're kind of wrapping up and thinking about this, if depending on the spectrum of awake and moving, getting the healing, and then staying in a healed place, staying in a place of a healthy place, we want to get people too, so that they, again, keep moving in that direction. So what has been key to your success, Matt, as a business owner, as working with lots of different people, to stay in success, to keep moving in that direction?
Yeah. Thanks, David. So absolutely community. I recommend, as part of the prescription, that long-term, lifetime connection with community is around this. As it relates to addiction specifically, what I find is that, man, we may always have a tendency to return to it. Like, for me, if I get sloppy and I stop connecting and I stop doing all the things that keep me in a healthy place, over time, that porn's gonna sneak back in, man. Like, that always may be a part of my life. And the good side is, all that actually serves me to help me be the best version of myself too. It incentivizes me to be the best version of myself. But long-term connection with community is so critical, because it helps keep, for me, to stay top of mind around, what do I need to do to stay sharp? How do I stay connected to others? How do I keep my inventory short, right? How do I continue to share the things that are important to share, and not have secrets in my closet, the things that maybe I'm carrying shame around? So staying connected, as my sponsor in the 12-step community says, I go to meetings every day, and I still do, because whenever I stop going to meetings and I stop getting around community, I begin to forget, and then the idea to begin acting out starts to make sense again. Right. And it's so easy. That addict voice that wants to show up, it makes a lot of sense when it shows up, and it rationalizes behavior that is not, I know is not good for me in my clear mind. So I want to say that, and being a community helps me keep top of mind that there's a very specific framework that I've learned to keep in place in my life, that needs to be present, that keeps me in that healthy place. So community, which reinforces my framework and keeps my recovery top of mind. And number two, at the bottom of the screen there, it says porn to purpose. A big piece of the work that we do here is moving into purpose in our lives, and getting intentional. And it connects back to that why. If I'm going to say no to porn, what am I saying yes to? And being clear on living a purpose-driven life is so critical. And what that looks like in our community is moving into leadership and creating leadership opportunities, because when we're visible, just like you are here in your community, David, we now need to have a degree of mastery over what it is that we're talking about, right? And then we're held to a higher standard and a higher level of accountability in our own walk. So for me, I sometimes have the realization, like, man, I did this porn to purpose thing to serve others, but it was really a lot about me, because I'm like, I'm going to go all in on myself. I'm going to go public with my journey. I'm going to create the highest level of accountability in my life. My mom knows about it. Everybody knows about it. And I'm going to be super visible around this, because it calls me to a higher standard in my own life. So I would say leadership, Getting on
Mm,
purpose and getting into leadership
yes.
is a critical role. It really serves for the long term.
Oh man, Matt, so many nuggets here. Thank you so much for just coming on here today and sharing this with us and the audience. There's so much more. Matt, you even have a podcast as well, don't you?
I do the Porn to Purpose podcast.
There
Yes.
you go. So you guys go check out Matt's Point of Purpose podcast. I think Matt, the nuggets you just left to me of I agree 100% community. This is a lifestyle, a way of being. It's not a one and done. This is a way of being. I found the same thing in multiple. I've had multiple groups, mastermind groups, business, different areas of life. From marriage to relationships to body, there's different areas. So whatever that is for you, I think it's super important that you find multiple avenues for community and connection, right, Matt? I know you've got a great men's group. I see you on Facebook, and you guys are out hiking and doing cool stuff. So I mean that, and I do agree with leaders because ultimately here on the Business Roundtable podcast, we're talking to those that are in a leadership position, whether you believe it or not. You're at a place of influence, and you can only influence as far as you're taking account for yourself. And so, yeah, I think that's a great model, Matt. Are you moving in that direction? And living authentically and transparently. Here's the thing: all of us have our issues, right? Everybody does. But if you can, like you said, Matt, put it all out there and lead. You kind of give permission to other people to then like, oh, you mean you did that, and that means I mean I can show my cards, I can leave that. Yes, because we don't want that holding you back any further, right, Matt? I mean,
Yeah.
let's move further together.
Yeah, man. I think it's all about how honest am I willing to be, which I believe the men in your organization model really well. Just
Mm-hmm.
being authentic. It gives others permission to do the same, and also
Yep.
just doing your best to walk the walk every single day. At least I'm gonna. Maybe I fail. Maybe I'm not perfect, but I'm at least gonna show up and do my best to follow the code and do what I'm supposed to do every single day. Take responsibility for it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the difference, Matt. When you live that way, you're like, hey, you know what? We all do. We all fall. We're all uh, you know, have that trip up. Nobody is a perfect, but when you own that of your life and you say, look, this is my whole life, I'm laying it all out there, it's different than you have people that try to put on a particular show or angle, and they're trying to like carve this person, and they're not being real. And I think we live in a world today where unfortunately there's a lot of that, and it blocks what you talked about earlier of real deeper connection. We want real deep connection. I hear people that have tens of thousands, millions of followers, but they have no real connection in their life, and they're left hollow. And so we want you on the Business Roundtable podcast, and why I had Matt on here is that you become that person of connection, empowering others, leading them, leading your organization, leading whoever you have a part of you. That's why I created Steward Your Business, to help business owners and their teams. Matt is helping individuals along this journey, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're leading teams or not. The fact that you want to lead yourself well, Matt, and I so appreciate you being an example and calling up other men to live this way. So I appreciate and honor you, Matt, for coming on and sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you, David. Honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and talk with you, man.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Please, we love your comments and your feedback. Comment, leave us a 5-star review. Wouldn't mind on your favorite platform, Apple or whatnot. Find us on YouTube. If you're listening to us here, you can see Matt and I in on the screen. We just really appreciate all your support and engagement. Have an amazing day. Until next time, take good care. Thanks, everybody.